Hi, Anna.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. How are you doing?
I'm going through several, not identity crises simultaneously, but I am having a lot of epiphanies
Mm,
simultaneously. And it's kind of blowing my mind right now.
Understandably.
But it's okay. It is totally okay. How are you?
I am good. I am good.
Great. Have you been watching the Olympics?
I have been watching soccer and basketball, but not many other sports. How about you?
I haven't really been watching the Olympics, but I have been checking up on the news with it. Um, just I saw the news today about Simone Biles, and honestly, just standing up for herself and honestly, just like taking care of her own mental health. I'm just like, I just can't help but admire that with
Mm-hmm.
the kind of platform that she has, honestly,
Yeah,
to be able to do that.
I'm 100% for it. Yeah, I'm also, yeah. It's kind of that same feeling I felt when Naomi Osaka pulled
Mm-hmm.
from, I forgot which
French
tournament.
Open.
She said it was because she was homesick, but it was actually mental health reasons. But it's
Mm-hmm.
that same type of, wow, look at these queens doing what they need to do.
Like honestly, I saw a tweet that was like, y'all, um female like black female athletes really are just carrying all of us. And I was just like, I see no lies.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
they've got a lot on their
setting
shoulders.
setting precedents for taking care of yourself on like the professional athletic stage. Whereas like I don't know, I feel like in the past like we've wasn't there like there's definitely been like athletes that have like probably not taken care of their mental health and kind of like just gone completely like off,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
just burnt out and
Hmm.
burnt out and beyond.
I think a lot of that, well, not a lot. I can imagine that there are athletes who use their sport to cope with whatever mental health
Mm-hmm.
situation that they're dealing with. And so for these incredible women to take a step back and in some way kind of start the normalizing mental health on
Mm-hmm.
such a big stage, it shows real progress. It's really incredible.
Exactly. And like your mental health is just as much a part of your health as your physical health. And so like it's such a side I feel like in athletes that just gets ignored because so much focus is put on their bodies and their body's abilities. Um and then you always hear like coaches saying like it's a mind game. It's really just a mind game. You just got to get your body and your mind synced up or whatever, but you never hear about them coaching their minds or being able to like um really take care of their mental health like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I really admire both of these women for all of that they are doing. But yeah, that's that's good stuff coming out of it's Tokyo, right? See, I don't pay it enough attention.
It is Tokyo, yes.
I was like it's Japan. So bad. Oh my goodness. Uh So this week we were reading, I don't even know, we're over halfway through the book. This doesn't have chapters, but any first takeaways? All you can ever know.
Wow, so much has happened. So, what is the first takeaway to talk about? Hmm. I feel like the most obvious one is to talk about um her sister, who I'm forgetting her name for whatever reason. Not Jessica.
Cindy.
Cindy, okay, Cindy, and talk about her relationship with her mom and how it's completely severed. And she was, it's like a warning. We're definitely gonna talk about abuse, but she was abused as a child.
Like, there is so much that goes into, like, I don't, from what I remember learning about abuse in school, it's just like, those were some of the hardest classes for me, honestly. Just from, like, I didn't grow up in a household that where I was physically abused. So I could never really imagine growing up like that. But like also just the kind of bravery that it took for Cindy to be able to really vocalize that enough for Nicole to put it in a book.
Yeah.
Um,
And initial interactions too.
yeah. Like, there's just so many layers that go with that. And then on top of that, other alert, the fact that their parents lied to them about the entire existence of another human being.
Yeah. And now that they know the
Mm-hmm.
question of why, the answer is completely different for both parents.
Mm-hmm. And like, I just, what I want to take away from it is like, parents don't lie to your kids.
Mm.
Like, that seems to be like a really hard line, but I'm also not a parent. So like, I wouldn't know like about, there are certain like lines that can be blurred whenever it comes to lying. I don't think lying to your kids is great, but like in some instances, like when, depending on age too,
Right.
for sure. And what kids can developmentally handle. But it
And I
was,
think,
yeah,
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, you go.
I was just two things. First, there's a way for them. I mean, not a parent, not
Mm-hmm.
criticizing. I definitely can think of ways to handle this without lying.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, definitely age. I mean, they were younger. I don't even know about Jessica, but Cindy was definitely younger.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to say exactly,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a way to handle it that didn't include completely writing off a child. And then
Yeah.
also, I just feel like in so many ways we underestimate what kids can handle,
Mm-hmm.
what kids understand, what they know, what they feel, like they know what's going on. And so I think that's a way that we rationalize lying to kids,
Mm-hmm.
but that still isn't necessarily the right answer.
Kids are very observant
Mm-hmm.
and they're able to really just absorb and take in like their environment. Um, and just really, like, kids can, if kids do catch you in a lie, you're in trouble. But like, yeah, I just thought it was so interesting, each of the parents' explanations for why.
Mm-hmm. And to me, it was so interesting because Jessica said that her parents ran a household where I make a decision, you deal with it. Like you don't ask any questions. And
Mhm.
so she said that it was so interesting that they lied about the kid because they could have been consistent and said, this is what happened.
Mhm.
This, like, don't question me. And that would have been a very different story from what we have now, where they lied about the kid. And so now the sisters just like don't even know what to think. They're completely
Mhm.
caught off guard.
Yeah, it's just, I, like I said, I just cannot fathom that. I'm not a parent. But I just also feel like each every family has its secrets and has like dirty laundry and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like um they're just, it's just so, it sounds like something that comes out of fiction when this is actually a memoir.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I can't imagine what like was going through their heads, you know? Oh my goodness. And bringing like a racial and a cultural piece into this. I'm not an expert on Korean culture, obviously, or Korean American culture, but like I'm wondering like how how guilt and shame are expressed through family um whenever the parents did know that the baby was very sick, and they talked about like not being able to afford the hospital bills.
Mhm.
Like if like culturally, like if there was like a very big guilt factor in that, and there was shame around not being able to afford it, therefore like the shame of giving the child away versus the shame of not being able to provide for it, if they outweighed each other, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I definitely think the cultural context is something that we
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to understand what went into giving Nicole Chung up for adoption.
Mm-hmm. Like, oh my goodness. And what's also so interesting, like for me, like as an adoptee, knowing other adoptee narratives, and then also just an overarching narrative of um, like a lot of adoptees being adopted into majority white culture, um, that kind of having the tendency to other and to ostracize like Asian cultures and to like label them as like weird or off-putting, or like say saying something racist or against like the birth parents, like um for example, something that I've heard a lot, not me personally but from other adoptees experiences, is like, oh, your parents were probably just poor farmers um that didn't couldn't like afford to keep you, so they just threw you out or whatever. So
Mhm.
like making assumption majority culture making assumptions about the parents like that, it makes me wonder what Nicole Chung's adoptive parents thought about her biological parents whenever they got her, and like if there were any like racial ideas that played into that, like racist ideas that played into that from growing up in a racist society. Are you following me on that?
I
Sorry.
I am. No, I think you're making great points. I think there's no way there weren't racial assumptions made.
Mm-hmm.
Even from like the beginning where they're saying, "Oh, like your parents wanted a better life for you." Assuming that this life is a better life than what she would have had. I feel that that has to have some type of racial undertone.
Mm-hmm. And like after like it makes me wonder, after like even after this book came out, like what Nicole's like adoptive parents thought, if there was any, now that she's in reunion, like if she like if there was any internalized or externalized judgment on her adoptive parents part, like because you can't, it's one of those things in the adoption world, it's like it's really hard not to compare,
Yeah.
because it's literally like two sets of parents
Hmm.
that you are looking at. And I think the same goes for like just any alternative caregiving scenario, like children that are placed in the care of like cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents. Like there's always going to be the judgment and um comparison between birth parents and the alternative caregiver.
Definitely. I mean, I even see that comparison between family. Like, but I compare my parents and their parenting style to my cousin's parents and their parenting style.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I feel comparison is almost inevitable. If you see like two sets of the same, seemingly, I feel we automatically start looking for differences.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm also just like curious, like whenever you throw in the transracial adoptee experience and perspective on that, like I know in the whole there's probably just a different goodness, my brain's not working right now. I feel like my brain doesn't work a lot
I feel like
anymore.
there's a lot to process.
Yeah.
And processing it and being able to say it are two very difficult things because there's so much going on.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I'm gonna stop talking now and let you talk for a little bit because I need to get my thoughts together on this.
Well,
Like
what you were saying reminded me about, sorry, I did not mean to cut you off.
no, go for it.
Wait, Nicole was taught about the abuse. And so she was talking because she's full pregnant now. And so she's worried about like what that means for her and like her soon to be child. And so she like calls her mom because like that's her mom and she wanted to be comforted, but she didn't want to tell her like that detail that her mother was abusive to her sister. Just so many things. First thing I thought of was just like she didn't want that to be her mom's view of her biological mom.
Yeah. Like that. That's it. It just feels like it would be almost, if I were to find that out about like my biological mother, I would consider that like probably like worst case scenario. Like, because I feel like the overarching narrative is that mothers are supposed to be sweet and gentle and nurturing and kind, when in reality that's not always the case, due to like past trauma, which doesn't excuse the behavior, but like definitely like can explain like why certain things happen. But like, once again, I'm not trying to explain away abuse, because abuse should never happen to children. But like, it's, I literally cannot imagine finding that out about my biological mother.
Yeah. I think, I mean, for so many reasons, right? Like, that's your biological mother. And then also just, I imagine this idea that you have in your head of what your biological mother is like. It's not like that.
I'm also thinking about the stereotype of the Asian tiger mom, too.
Could you explain the stereotype?
The stereotype of the Asian tiger mom being that the Asian mothers are tigers and always wanting their children to be the best at everything, wanting to have the best grades, doing the best at sports, doing the best at whatever they're doing, so that they get to a borderline and possibly abusive situation with the child, pushing the child to be better until the child actually like kind of breaks down. But that's what my thought of a tiger mom is. I'm going to go ahead and Google it. This may or may not result in a terrible experience because it's Google.
Yep.
Yeah.
It definitely falls into the stereotype of like the Asian A or like the over excelling Asian student.
Oh, it's got a Wikipedia page. It's got a Wikipedia page, y'all. Tiger parenting is a form of strict parenting whereby parents are highly invested in ensuring their children's success. Specifically, Tiger parents push their children to attain high levels of academic achievement or success in high status extracurricular activities such as music or sports. It's interesting because, oh, here we go. Tiger parent is analogous to other parenting stereotypes, such as the American stage mother who demands her child achieve her career success in Hollywood, or the Japanese mama who expends enormous effort in directing the development of her children's educational and intellectual achievement. So, okay. So, whenever it goes into history and origin, that's whenever it starts describing, like, ascribing these tributes to Asian parenting specifically. That's very interesting.
And for me, it's extremely interesting. We're saying interesting a lot.
Yeah.
But people would say that's a good stereotype. There's no such thing as a good stereotype, just so we say that verbally, just so everybody knows.
Like, both of our faces were just like,
oh yeah, that's true. If you're listening, we're just
like staring at this, like, because as women of color, we've definitely have been gaslit at some point in our lives by saying, oh, but that's a good stereotype, right? Like for me, it was, oh, you're good at school. And I was like, that's kind of a racist assumption, but that's a good assumption because you are good at school. And I was like, all right, I don't know how to debate this, and we only have 7 minutes in the hallway, so peace.
right. How do you debate a racist in 7 minutes in between classes?
Exactly, when I'm trying to like get to my next class on the other side of the school. But like good stereotypes. Sheesh, that's such an oxymoron.
It's yeah, like where did that even come from? It feels like it goes back into comparing different types of oppression and different type of racism. They're like, oh, well, at least it's not this. But that again is not good and it's not beneficial for literally anyone. There's no such thing as a good stereotype.
Yeah. Like it's almost like assuming like what else? I'm trying to think of really offensive like good stereotypes. Good quote unquote stereotypes now, and like my brain is not working, so I'm not gonna do that in fear of like offending literally everyone.
I was going to say maybe it's a good thing that you can't think of it.
It's good that my brain does not go straight to the offensive stereotype, that my mouth just blurts it out, and so that I ostracize literally every single person listening to this. But how do you even start to combat that? Exactly.
Yeah, because usually when I say that's racist, they're like, oh, but that's like good. That's good. That's like people expecting good things. If you don't understand already that there's no such thing as like a good thing from racism, there's no good stereotype, then I don't even know what to say to you.
Like, okay, like for instance, I'm saying I say something offensive and then I'm just so convinced that that's a good thing of what I said. I think it goes back into the internalization of the racism and wanting to feel like the good person. Backtrack. That person backtracks and being like, I can't be racist because I just told you a good thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think there's like this foundation where if you have this solid understanding, then yeah, we can have a conversation. But if we're not even built on the same foundation, there are just some things that we cannot talk about just simply because, oh, my policy teacher did a really good job of just having an activity showing us the different beliefs of different groups of people. And it was mostly political, but there are just some foundational things that people are not going to agree upon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so frustrating.
Yeah. Like, how do you get anyone on the same level, on the same like level ground, if it's just I don't
Yeah.
even know if I would compare it like as different levels of ground, because that's assuming someone is higher than the other one, assuming one is better than the other one. I would compare it to probably like we're both trying to fill a box, a moving box, and someone is using packaging peanuts, but the other person is using tissue paper.
Okay.
Like, and the goal is to try to fill the box and to pack it. But the argument is through different. I'm really bad at analogies tonight.
No, that was a good one. And I'm glad you said that too. And I think that's like a perfect example. If I was not a person who had an open mind and just understanding I don't know everything, I would have doubled back that. And I would have said, no, because Hannah, my point was solid. We have a foundation. But you bring up an excellent point that definitely brings out this hierarchy thing that we constantly deal with in basically every area of life. And so, yes, I like your analogy.
Oh, thank you. Oh my goodness. Like, I was also just thinking about honestly packaging plants and mailing them.
There's always a low-key motive towards plants that you gotta look for.
A little bit. I do love plants. But it's just stereotype. Like, what do you like? So if you are coming at it from an anti-racist perspective with packaging peanuts, and someone is coming at it with a well-meaning but very equally racist perspective of tissue paper, and you're both trying to pack the box full and achieve a deeper understanding of race and relations, like, how do you even begin to go there? Do you ask them to like crumple up the pieces of tissue paper so that they resemble the packing peanuts? I'm getting too deep into this.
Right. But the point is very clear. Those are two different forms of communicating. Those are two different solutions seemingly to the same problem. How do you coexist, and how do you compromise, and how do you work together when you are fundamentally believing in two very different things?
And it's not our jobs to educate someone over like racist stereotypes. Like, honestly, like, if someone were to come up and tell me like, hey, you're Asian, you must be really good at math, and I would be like, well, that's a racist statement, and they'd be like, how? I just complimented you. And then I told them to go Google it. What do I tell them to Google?
Right. Because ideally they would already know that that's mad racist and wouldn't say anything like that to you. But since you're put in that position, what do you say? What do you do? I think something really, really important that you pointed out is well-meaning, and just how dangerous well-meaning people can be. Because you could be doing things that you think are great, and they could be doing a lot of harm.
Impact over intention, or whatever that saying is. Like, I could say, oh my goodness, I love my plants so much, I'm gonna keep giving you, my friend, so many plants, and you're gonna fill up your room. But I don't know what your window situation is. I don't know what, like, the sunlight that's coming into your window. I don't know if you're allergic to certain plants. So I might actually be A, suffocating you, and B, harming the plants. So it hurts both of y'all.
With well intentions. And that's just so hard to explain. that along with, I think, everything else we've talked about. But saying that people meaning well could still be doing harm has been extremely difficult for me to explain.
Mhm. Like, exactly. Especially in like with all of oops, with all of with all of the different discord that's been going on, just socially and politically, and just with everything that's going on. Like, I feel like the world could use a little more kindness, but is it really truly kindness if it actually hurts someone in the long run? Is that truly a kind thing?
Yeah. And I think now there's definitely a lot of talk about impact and like
Mhm.
sustainability and future impact.
Mhm.
Because I personally, I don't think it can be a kind thing if it's going to hurt someone in the future. Like,
Yeah.
you have to keep that in mind. Whatever you did, the consequences are on you, good or bad.
Mhm. Like, taking it back to like the situation with the book, like the impact of telling Nicole while she was pregnant what what her biological mother was really like that. Like, I feel like that's a truth that can't necessarily be hidden completely, but also like the impact of that, like how that would affect Nicole in her pregnancy and everything. Like, I don't know how Cindy and Jessica like were able to like, I don't know if there were different conversations that went through that were not included in the book, but like I'm just it's just so hard because also knowing that their mom is still actively like out there and kind of she still exists, and she still is a mom.
Mhm. Yeah, I think two things. When Nicole, because after she found out about the abuse and she was telling her mom, like when she asked her mom if she thinks she would be like her biological mom, I
Mhm.
literally got chills. And so I think you bring up a really good point, that impact of her knowing the truth
Mhm.
in that critical time of her pregnancy.
Mhm.
There were some consequences there. And then also it just made me so interested that Jessica had such a good relationship with her mom,
Mhm.
knowing how her mom abused Cindy.
It's knowing what little I do know about like child abuse from like the psychological standpoint and the developmental standpoint of like another child in the household, where like there are like cases where like some kids are favored over other ones, but like knowing what the parent is capable of, it probably became a survival mechanism.
Yeah,
Like, it just
yeah. And there's so much unknown.
Mm,
Like we only know what's in this book, but they
exactly.
were raised in this house. This was their life story. So yeah, I think you bring up a good point.
Oh my goodness. Heavy, heavy stuff again.
Yeah.
Every time. Oh my goodness. Like, I don't know. I'm excited to see how this continues to unfold again because I already read it. But like
Yes, because there's so many plot twists. I didn't see any of this coming, and we've still
Mhm.
got a little less than half of a book.
I know, right?
Mm.
Yeah. It's crazy. Well, thank you as always for discussing all of these hard topics with me and trying and also continuing to try to look at it with an anti-racist lens with me as well.
Yes, thank you for having me.
This has been fun. I will see you next week.
Yes, I'll see you then.
All right. Bye.